England dominant in Jimmy Anderson's farewell test match. This is the Super Over. I'm Steve Harmison alongside Machel St Patrick Hewitt from the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Mash, was it as simple as Gus Atkinson was too good, or were the West Indies poor?
I think it's got to be the West Indies are poor. I think you've got to look at some of those dismissals, and I think there's two things that stand out for me. Where do we rank the application or lack thereof? Where do we rank West Indies batting in the worst of the conditions today? And where do we rank something that you had raised to me prior to the test match starting, the potential brittleness and weakness of an inexperienced top order? But then even if we go down that line, Gus Atkinson's on debut. So we can't say the West Indies batters are on debut and therefore that's a problem when Gus Atkinson was on debut and he's taken a 7-for. So there's a lot of moving parts there that I'm going to intrigued to see how you take it from there. But overall, you have to say it was a poor day's work from the West Indies.
It was, but 7 for 45 on debut here at Lord's is an unbelievable achievement from a young bowler who is inexperienced, as in performance-wise. Not bowled a huge amount of first-class overs. What do you make of the way he, as you say, exploited the brittleness of the West Indies batting unit?
So Gus ultimately, for me, put a lot of balls in the right areas. Got a bit of bounce at times. I think of something like Holder's dismissal. So Holder's dismissal looks ugly. But I wonder if on reflection, Holder will say the bounce surprised me a bit. So I think the extra pace that Gus had at times, I think surprised the West Indian batters. But you can have extra pace and not put the ball in the right areas. We've seen the West Indies bowlers when they've come round to bowl. Alzari Joseph's got a lot of pace. Shamar Joseph has got a lot of pace. But if you're not actually pitching it in the right areas, pace can just be pace. So you have to give credit to Gus because I think he continually asked questions of the technique, and some of that technique was found wanting, but you still have to ask those questions.
Team selection was out, day before. Where did he stand on that? And Jason Holder batting at number 6.
Right.
Is that too high?
Jason Holder 5 years ago, so he's 32 now, 5 years ago in his prime, 4 years ago in his prime, he probably should have been batting at number 6.
We were in the Caribbean and he got double 100.
Right, exactly. So I think you can argue that Jason Holder at 27, 28 was a number 6 who was batting too low. Now there's an argument to say he's batting one spot too high, but we also have to weigh up, Steve, that the number 2, 3, 4 and 5 in the West Indies batting lineup have about 7 test matches between them. So if they'd put Kevin Sinclair there, for example, that's then 8 matches between 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So you do have to have experience in your top 6, and there's not many other options to turn to. The question mark for me is, should Josh Da Silva have gone one above Jason? But then they both got a duck. So
yeah. There were positives though. Michael Lewis on debut, even though he dropped that catch. There was 1 or 2 starts. Anthony's got a start. Hodge got a start. Holder's probably been their best bowler, but from a batting point of view, you mentioned the inexperience, but a couple of them did get starts.
Yeah, and I think what we're probably likely to see is as this series goes on, they're going to grow into their game. The problem is by the time or I would argue is that by the time they grow into their game, the test series is probably already going to be over as a contest as a result. But when you get a start, that should be enough to tell Mikhail, it should be enough to tell Alec, it should be enough to tell Gavem, I can do well here. So hopefully they go away, they tweak some of the kind of poor decision making they made in that first innings for the second innings, but also looking ahead to Trent Bridge, I think they will improve as they go along. So there's little sparks there.
Yeah, there was 1 or 2 when you look at that, some of like the McKenzie dismissal as, for example. I look at that as it's not. He hasn't batted in England. He just hasn't batted at Lords before. The inexperience of the batting unit. There was a lot of little teething issues where you're thinking this is not just batting in England, playing away from their body. You're not realising the slope you're batting on. I think there was 1 or 2 issues in that. But the one thing that's not inexperienced is the bowling attack. So what have you made of the counter punch? 121, nowhere near good enough. We've You know, we've discovered that. How do you med of what is probably West Indies' strengths, which is their bowling unit?
So the bowling, I mean, Alzari's been a bit, I mean, not a bit, he's been subpar, but even Alzari managed to produce a few jaffers, beat the outside edge, have the batters wafting at a few. Jaden has, well, he's been the pick of the bowlers thus far in terms of in the wicket column. Jason has, again, I think you alluded to this on the pre-series show, that his experience has come to the fore in terms of knowing immediately what line and length to bowl in these conditions. I mean, I will still maintain that this bowling attack can make inroads into the England batting, but you can't give them 121 and say, go on then, work your magic. It's a hide into nothing. And ultimately, as good as they may turn out to be, as good as they may do over the series, the batting has to give them something to work with. Otherwise, what are we really saying about the bowling by the end of this test match, by the end of the series? So the batting has to show up first and foremost. You've
seen a lot of cricket. Somebody else has seen a lot of cricket. You were coming into this box as Stuart Broad was going out. And Broad, you were just commenting before you came in about that bad light delay. Probably cost the West Indies, didn't it? Because that was West Indies' best chance of getting a couple of wickets, getting Joe Root in, getting Joe Root out. I thought it was madness going off.
Yeah, so... It was would you have wanted to? Well, of course you would.
This is, and the rule is dangerous, and I don't think it was dangerous. That's why I couldn't understand them going off. Jason was bowling nicely, wasn't really dangerous, but I thought that was the West Indies' best chance of getting not back into the test, but a couple of wickets and giving themselves some confidence tonight. Yeah,
it certainly was. I just assumed, they'll put the floodlights on and we'll just crack on. But, I mean, cricket has some funny rules. Cricket has some funny rules at times. And I guess you could argue on the flip side that maybe actually West Indies needed to get off the pitch to just regather themselves. They've bowled a bit better. Not necessarily in the conditions they would have wanted to bowl, but they've bowled a bit better after the break. They've taken a few more wickets after that break. But, yes, it would have been nice to bowl in those conditions.
And also the catching. There's been a couple of catches gone down. A little bit of discipline, is that a sign of inexperience, or is that a sign of a side who's only really been in England for a week?
I didn't want to use this phrase, and I don't want to catch any pelters for it, particularly from
I'm used to getting pelters. Go on, Mash.
I'm trying to protect myself, but I did wonder going into this test match how undercooked would we be. So what we had. About 4 days in Tunbridge, then some of them played in that kind of net session against the county 11. You're asking a lot for players. I know because of the hectic calendar, but you're asking a lot for players, and again, inexperienced players to suddenly go off the back of not much prep. And remember, it's not like they've come off the back of a domestic season. It's been a significant gap since that domestic season ended. So is there a sense that we're a bit undercooked and not match ready? But again, the proof will be in the pudding, because I still maintain they'll get better as the series goes on.
And how do you think Shamar Joseph, there was a big, obviously, off the back of the Gabba, 7 for 10 in the match. He only landed here a few days ago. He was a little bit of an injury at the back end of today's play. How do you think he's gone? Was there a worry?
Do you know what? It's super interesting. I think there's so much hype behind Shamar, and rightly so. I mean, if you take 10 wickets in Australia, there's going to be hype. But some of the performance day suggests to me he's trying to work out the slope at Lords and how you're supposed to bowl here, etc. And actually asking you as a fast bowler, how much adapting do you have to do to I guess, adapt to bowling at Lords, even if you've got a 10 for behind you? Because he just looks like it looks like the zip's not there just yet. And I guess that makes sense, because you arrived 3 days ago, you've done a couple nets, didn't play a warm-up game, straight into the competitive nature of a test match versus England. Just doesn't look quite there. But I don't know how much of that is down to how difficult it might be to bowl at Lords.
I think a lot of it is down to the fact that he is only just arrived. I think The bowling at Lord's bit, I thought West Indies' plans to Ben Duckett were very, very good. We'll come on to Zach Crawley in a second because he batted exceptionally well. But I think when it comes to Lord's, the one thing I did say to Jamira Lewis, who plays at my club, who's been playing, he's bowled about 100 overs so far for Ashton this season. I was quite surprised they didn't throw him in because he's English cricket readied. When preparation, bowl a lot. Get used to the slope because that's the biggest thing. You can feel comfortable as anything in rhythm, but that slope does wonderful things to your bowling action because if you bowl from the pavilion end, you've just got to, your lines of outside off stump has got to be, just that little bit further fifth stump to get it to go onto off stump because if not, you get clipped through mid wicket very, very quickly. And from the nursery end, you have to hold your action because if you don't hold your action, you fall down the hill. Chris Wokes found that out. I think Shamar Joseph has found that out. But the plans towards Zach Crawley, whatever plans they had, they didn't really work because Zach Crawley batted beautifully.
Zach Crawley, so he made, I think, 76. 76 is what I think he's made today. Zach Crawley seems to divide opinion. I don't know. Me personally, I think you have to take the rough with. I'd love to have him in the West Indies team. I think you have to take the rough with the smooth. But would you like to see him score? Let's rephrase that. Would you like to see him convert more of the 50s into smaller hundreds, or do you just accept that when he goes big, he goes very big, and that you take the rough with the smooth? I
think you take the rough with the smooth. I think the ceiling level of Zach Crawley is so high, and the winning factor of a game situation he could put you in a quick fashion, I think, is what I think excites this England team. There's sights in management, and for me, I've gone away from we need to convert more. It's just keep getting off the starts because if he does, he puts bowlers under pressure. And you see the way that West Indies bowled in this game, and the hang up and the hangover from this bowling at Zach Crawley will hang over for the next 2 Test matches, and that I think is the sort of something we end on is this what we're going to expect from West Indies over 3 Test matches, which is potentially going to be 3 Test matches of long days in the field.
Thanks for that ending. The answer is I hope not, and I hope that Lords is just the rude awakening. And we must remember, in fairness, just to remind everyone watching that the last time West Indies were here before the pandemic tour, people may remember that there was that first test where West Indies got absolutely blown away in 2017. Then Shea Hope and Craig Brathwaite Headingley. And it was a complete 180 from what happened in the first test. And then in the third test, which I think was actually Lords, they were competitive for half the test and then eventually fell away. So you've just got to hope that... And do you know what? For England's sake as well, there's nothing to be gained by flat track winning and flat track bullying, so to speak. So England themselves will want West Indies to be more competitive and put more of a challenge in. So we just have to hope that as things progress, things get more... competitive.
And what can they do to come back tomorrow and still give themselves hope?
Well, I would assume England are going to bat all day tomorrow. I think we're in for a long, long day. Hopefully, though, West Indies can come back they've got a bit of a good few overs in their legs this afternoon and into the evening. Hopefully, they look at their plans for tomorrow. Best case scenario for West Indies, bowl England out by T. England's lead is probably going to be 250 plus at that stage, maybe more. And then when they come to bat in the post-T session, just show a bit more application before losing their wicket. And actually, before we go, I should just ask you this. Do you think England declare tomorrow?
England will declare tomorrow because that's Ben Stokes' way.
Right, exactly.
Ben Stokes' way. He will declare tomorrow, and I've got no doubt whatsoever that England will come out and be positive. We spoke about it a little bit earlier, myself and John Norman. Under Joe Root, England would have probably tried to bat for 2 days. Ben Stokes doesn't play that way. He wants to get the games finished as quickly as possible, try and get his bowlers, especially in back-to-back games. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about tomorrow, but I can only see England being positive. And on that positive note, I hope from a West Indies fan's point of view that Machel St Patrick Hewitt is hope that they get some wickets tomorrow and they do turn it around. But unfortunately, I don't think they will. I think this could be a long, long 3 Test matches for the boys from the Caribbean.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.